Hi, everyone. I am really excited that we decided to host this panel today because the professional channel represents such a huge, first of all, it's such a huge piece of the industry, and it's such a huge opportunity for brands. However, it's probably one of the least understood categories out there. And here to sort of help us sift through the noise is an incredible panel. So we have Suveen Sahib, he's the co-founder and CEO of K18 Hair. Carrie Gross, she's the co-founder and CEO of Dr. Dennis Gross Skincare. And Richard Parker, all the way from Australia, the founder and director of research at Rationale. The professional channel, meaning distribution in spas, salons, and medical practices, like I said, is one of the biggest opportunities out there. But unlocking the potential of the channel really requires, not only understanding the rules of engagement and how to do business, but also earning the respect of the community, of service providers, who really, in essence, can make or break your business. And so, Suveen, let's start with you. If a brand today wants to explore the salon space, what are some of the fundamentals of doing business?
Hi, first of all, can you hear me well? I got a very terrible accent. So this is not just about the salon space. It's about owning the mind space of the professional. So if you're kind of thinking about salons or stylists as an afterthought, as a channel strategy, or to help you leverage their abilities to sell more retail products, it's a non-starter. You got to literally weave them into your DNA. And that's what we kind of do at K18. Our mission, our entire company is configured around the professional. So it's about how do you educate them, how do you nurture them, how do you inspire them, and how do you impact them. We got more than about 20% of our company is stylists. So what does that really translate into? First of all, product architecture. How are you creating products that actually drive their back bar services? That's how they make the money, improve their artistry, help them kind of make life easier and delight their clients. So you have them involved into your R&D, into your testing, into also defining your positioning. In our team, it's not the marketing that defines the positioning of the brand. When it comes to marketing, it all kind of starts with them. Our entire team, whether it's someone in the marketing or content or community, literally immerses themselves into the stylist and the salon space. Because you want to understand their lexicon. When you speak their language, when you understand their language, can you speak their language to the rest of the world? That also kind of means how we interact, how we educate, how we engage with them at different touch points, how you leverage them into not just speaking to the professional channels, but also your retail channels. So if you look at K18, you see stylists a part of your creative, a part of your communication in both professional and retail. And if you kind of see some of the big campaigns you've done, for example, we had the K18 Results campaign, which had about 12 billion views. It was all dedicated to the stylists. And finally, impacting the world. That's where they drive about 35% of our UGC content. They account for about 50% of our sales. And even when we think about giving back to the world, it's through the lens of the stylist.
So that is actually a really interesting learning. Your customer is also your biggest influencer.
Absolutely.
I love it. Carrie, the Dr. Dennis Gross brand obviously started out selling in a medical office, but you guys have found and thrived in the luxury spa space. So tell us about the fundamentals of doing business in the luxury spa space.
Sure. So that was my original go-to-market strategy, was going straight to estheticians, because from my perspective, they're the original beauty guru before derms even went into cosmetic dermatology. And so it's also a natural for us from like a doctorly approach, because when you have an esthetician and she's got a client and she removes the makeup and looks at, the skin concerns, you start a relationship, and you are hopefully going to be building a relationship where she's coming back. So we help our spas clientele and build loyalty. And when we first started, one of our most, epic programs was that we would sell a box of 30-day supply of the alpha beta peel along with the facial so that the esthetician could say, when your box is empty, it's time for another facial. Come on back and we'll take a look at your skin. And you set goals together and, you build that relationship. And it's a beautiful tool for the spas. They love it.
Yeah, using the product to sort of build in the timing of coming back and making another visit.
And, it's always building a relationship with your accounts. It's about being a strong business partner and building, the business together. And so there's always a ratio of back bar and services to product sales. And we happen to be a very commercial brand for the spa partners. We retail products really well.
So, Richard, you and the team at Rationale kind of pioneered the concept of setting up retail in a medical office environment. How does selling in a medical office differ than selling in a traditional retail environment?
When we started more than 32 years ago now, the concept of doctors actually selling anything was unheard of. Maybe if you're a psychiatrist, you might have written a book about happiness, or if you're a gynecologist, you could have written a book about women's health. That was about the only parameter where it was acceptable for doctors to sell anything. So dermatologists and plastic surgeons kind of chose us. It was really interesting. My first job out of college was making non-allergenic sunscreens for people that were having full facial laser resurfacing. And they had all sorts of immunological problems. They had antioxidants were shot. So we had to create this whole new parameter of skincare that revolved around prevention and treatment of sun damage. So, I always say Rationale isn't a skincare company who do research. We're a research company who makes skincare. And so the natural home for us was in doctors' offices, but we had to teach them how to do that. In medicine, you're taught if you do your job properly as a doctor, you should never see the patient again. That's your parameter of success. And yet with cosmetic dermatology and skincare, the patients want to come back again and again and again. So that was the first thing we helped to help doctors understand was that service aspect, the consultation aspect. All of that takes time and training. So there was a huge element of education around actually being in the skincare business for us to become successful in that channel and then gravitate towards our own flagship stores, which were like the experiential experience of Rationale. And of course, online is the new frontier for us. And beyond that, even department stores is really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to definitely come back to the education piece because it's such a critical piece of doing business in the professional channel. Before we do that, though, let's get tactical just for a second and talk about the economics of the professional space versus the retail space, because it's very different. So, Suveen, why don't we start with you, economics-wise, just high level, like how should people be thinking about their professional business versus the way they probably are familiar with thinking about their traditional retail business?
Yeah, as I said earlier, first of all, you got to kind of see the world through one lens. So if you're kind of thinking professional, it has to be through that lens. Now, it depends on if you are primarily a retail company. For every dollar that you kind of get from the consumer, you make about, say, 50 cents. But when it comes to the professional, it's going to be about 25 cents because it's a large fragmented community. You need to co-opt in partners. So the economics may not kind of work if you are focused on retail. But when you kind of look at the world through the lens of a stylist, then you focus on creating product architectures that really drives the services matrix in the salon. So when you kind of think about any stylist, they make money from color and cut. That's about 80% of the service. That's 80% of the money. We talk about, hey, stylists don't like selling products. Yes, I mean, if I can make $100 after 1 hour, why should I try to kind of use that hour to sell 4 products and make about $10 each? It just doesn't work. And that's where we have to fundamentally integrate into that service matrix and see how you create compelling product architectures that can really drive the back bar revenue and the adoption. And in turn, that fuels the retail. If you're not thinking that, it doesn't work. So in our case, our salon economics are as profitable as our retail economics. But that's because we've been looking at the world through that lens of a stylist in the first place.
Carrie, do you have anything to add?
The margins at with our spa partners are better than retail. It's true. And I think that, I take my account executives in their territories and I let them run their business. And we do all kinds of like incentives and contests, and we really encourage and teach the estheticians to sell product, because it isn't their first mindset. But it really does excite them, and they see the clients coming back, and they see the success and the results. So it's super important. And for me, it's an investment in my client. It's the client journey. So, our clients travel to Hawaii and they go to the Four Seasons and Maui, and there's our products in the spa, and they love it. And then they come back and they might shop at Sephora to replenish, but the credibility is so valuable. The spa channel, to me, it's like the jewel in our crown. I treasure it and I nurture it, and it's really, really valuable.
Yep. Richard, do you have anything to add about the economics of the professional side versus the retail side?
I think the biggest myth we had to debunk was the myth of passive income. There is nothing passive about selling skincare in a doctor's office. It requires an investment of time, as Carrie said, in training estheticians, but also in training the doctors themselves. They need to be actively involved. And when they do that, they can sell brilliantly, but they just don't like thinking about it as selling. So we always say rationale is prescribed and not sold.
Yeah. So the universal thread that sort of unifies all three of the channels that we're talking about here is the need to sort of be physically present and to train and engage with the practitioners and artists. Carrie, how has Dr. Dennis Gross gone about building a training program for its luxury spa clients?
It's interesting because a lot of our team members, they're business people and they love to sell, right? And so, the idea of like balancing their time between investing in the education versus, maybe they're prospecting and they've got a new hot property and they want to open it. So we really balance support from the corporate team in education. So, if I have an account executive who has a territory that's doing in excess of a couple $1 million, I hire her own trainer, and then they tag team. We also we have people in the corporate office that help out, and I even get Dennis to do, he'll do Zoom trainings for, an entire territory, maybe like based on like the West Coast, and then he'll do the East Coast. So we tag team it a couple different ways, and I myself go and do events for spas, and they have groups of women that come in, and we'll go in and we'll do education for the clients along with the estheticians. So we're very invested, and it's not just like one formula. We'd like to change it up.
Try a few different things.
Yeah.
Richard, how do you approach training in a medical office environment? Because there's sort of a line to straddle there, right? It's, you're talking to medical service providers who sort of have that medical service mindset, but also you're creating a destination for high-end skincare. So it's a totally different mindset. You sort of touched on it, but do you have anything to add to that?
I think everything for us starts with research. As I said, we're a research company, and for us, research and education are flip sides of the same coin. So it's very easy for us to speak to doctors and medical estheticians because we speak the same language. 80% of facial aging is caused by the sun. So 80% of our time, our skincare money, our skincare investment should be in the prevention and treatment of sun damage. It's that simple. And so that's the premise. But then the education underneath that is huge and very extensive. So we spend an enormous amount of time educating again about the latest developments in sunscreen technologies, immunological boosters, antioxidants, and so on. So we speak each other's language. language is how I like to. So that for them, research and education are the same thing. So
Yeah.
just exposing them to the research is really important. The fascinating thing today is that consumers are now very interested in research. They want to understand the why behind the products. And that's wonderful because that gives us an opportunity to, online, for example, to speak to our consumers at the department store counter, which is the new frontier for us, is to speak to them in Neiman Marcus about, well, we can help you, but maybe not right now. Right now, you need to see a doctor, and this is who we like to send you to. So it's an integrative approach.
Yeah, and Suveen, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say there's two elements. Also, I didn't mention this, but you have product knowledge, the ingredients, the delivery systems, et cetera, but you also have technique. And so, how you touch the skin and how you actually administer the treatments, that's another element too. So it's both.
Yeah. Suveen, I think you've already touched on this, but I loved when you shared your story about like one of the biggest challenges when you guys were really rolling out during the pandemic was teaching salon artists how to be business people. So maybe if you could just tell us quickly about all those Zoom meetings that you had over the last few years.
That's a great question you make, you say. And I can't underscore much the importance of education, as both Carrie and Richard kind of pointed out. Think about stylists are, first of all, artists. They're not business people. You got to kind of relate. You got to foster that emotional connection with the artistry, and you got to understand and immerse yourself into that artistry. That's when you kind of start really kind of working it out. But before even we get to that content of how you make better stylists, in US you got about more than 1 million stylists. It's a large and disparate kind of a network. It's literally one-on-one engagement. So you got to kind of think about how do I actually kind of access and immerse myself into this model in a very seamless and efficient way. And that's where you build up self-training models, you build up digital systems, you build up teams. We got, for example, 250 stylists who just kind of create content for other stylists. We got about 50 stylists on the ground teaching and other stylists. And that's when it comes to the second stage, which is about how do you make better business people. So first of all, think about a stylist life. They do the artistry, they make the money, they have a fixed number of clients in a day, and that's how it goes. They have a very limited amount of capital, which they roll over to the next week when they need to buy more products. And you walk into a stylist, you see tons of clients with their heads in the basins, locking time. That cuts down into their productive time and their ability. So how do we kind of create products and services that actually allow these artists to really focus their energies on what's most important rather than on everything? Number two is, how do you kind of make it speedier? So which means, for example, when we talk to stylists, we show them, hey, K18 can save you about 600 hours in a year. That's 600 hours more time for making more money and more artistry. Then finally, about business. Anytime you walk into a salon, you see hundreds of products on display. That's dead inventory. There are 3 products that sell while they're locked in with these other 97 products, and that's dead space. That does not do well for the economics. And you got to kind of really kind of help them kind of see through that. And finally, educate them how they can make more money through services. So if I'm a colorist, how do I improve my colorist capabilities? That can help me to kind of move from $70 and a service to a $90 a service. And same goes with the products that they use. If you're kind of taking care of your client's hair, how do you upsell? All of those together is what kind of helps them kind of become better business people.
Thank you for setting up my next question. That was a perfect segue. One of the biggest challenges to doing business in the professional space is sort of the disparate nature of the people you're doing business with. Suveen, you're doing business with potentially 1 million individual stylists. It's a challenge. So, Carrie, tell us about the role that trade shows play in building distribution in the spa space.
So I think, a few years back, it was really like iSpa. They kind of owned the space. But recently, over the past few years, a couple of very, very successful, smaller regional trade show groups have come to exist, Live Love Spa is one of them, and they have trade shows all over the US, maybe like 12 a year. And so you can go in and have a more intimate relationship with potential partners. They do a little bit of speed dating, but then they give you an opportunity to create an experience and show the potential partners about your brand. And so we really value the regional trade shows. There's a few of them, and a lot of times they'll have international attendees, so you really get a reach. And there's one coming up in LA, like in a couple weeks. They're all over. They're Texas, Florida, Denver. I mean, all over the U.S. And it's a great opportunity to network.
Richard, doing business with medical practitioners is sort of a high-touch business. How have you approached building those relationships, sort of en masse?
Well, medical conferences are very, very important to us. And for us, it's all about bringing our doctors up to date with the latest technologies. For example, we've just developed a new liquid zinc sunscreen. And so the education part of those conferences is one of our major outreaches. We have an incredible team that goes out and builds the business with the doctors. So we don't supply them the product and just hope for the best or do the odd training session. We have a true agency agreement with our doctors. So we're partners in this business. And so we're welcomed into the practice, which is wonderful. That being said, we're very selective about who we take. Our formula doesn't work for everybody. They really do have to understand the partnership, and we value what each player brings to the equation.
Suveen, how important is the role of a distributor in accessing salons?
The distributors are a critical part of the ecosystem. Without them, like you said earlier, when you kind of are trying to access about 1 million stylists, there's no way you can do it on your own. Even if you want to kind of get to about 10% of that, it's a large group. So which means you need partners who are education first. This is, we as brands or businesses, we over-invest into sales and marketing, and we leave education out, when actually education should be the one driving sales. So having partners who have that ability to drive education for you, interlock with your company and your brand in terms of kind of both digital and offline education systems, have that immersive capability and that touch point with the salons and the stylists on a daily basis, both engaging them one-on-one and in cluster classes and others. All of that is super key to really kind of building up that network. Think about it this way. Every time you're touching a stylist, you are literally touching about 50 customers and 4 other stylists. So you think about the network effect of just interacting and passionately involving one stylist. You do that with 100 stylists, you're already about at 2,000 customers, and how much that can reduce your cost of acquisition. So really building, this is not about distribution or a numeric count of stylists. It's about really having a top-down approach to building up passionate stylists and networks working with passionate distributors who can kind of really kind of run with you and are in sync with your mission and how you go about building the brand and building and impacting the stylist's life.
Thank you. So I want to make sure we have enough time for the audience to ask you guys questions. So let's open it up to questions. Does anyone?
Hi, I'm Elliot. I had a question for Suveen about the distributor topic that you were just talking about. So understanding the distributor landscape and that you have to lean in with them and partner with them to help drive distribution sales, but how do you control the environment of who they're selling to, who they work to, gray market potential? We know that the distributors obviously want to keep things in a tight-knit group for themselves as well. So how do you manage that while also growing your brand and sales and the awareness?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think many businesses have actually answers for that. But fundamentally, it's about actively engaging, first of all, with the distributors and the teams, and really kind of being in cohorts with them. So which means you need to have the ability to really kind of work alongside with them in the markets. track sell-through inventories. That's the only way you can kind of do it. There's no way beyond a point you can kind of manage diversion unless, and which also means you have to kind of have a better understanding of the market dynamics. Because as a distribution partner, I may kind of order about 1,000 cases, and when you know you can sell only 200 cases in a market, the other 800 cases are eventually going to find their way to the diversion. So we have to kind of play a more kind of a key role in that factor. Number two is how do you build anti-diversion practices right from your dynamic coding on the products and the packaging to literally kind of working with kind of anti-diversion practices with the distributors that they respect. And finally, at the end of the day, it's about sell-through. As a brand, it's your responsibility and accountability to drive sell-through for your partners. If you're not kind of doing that, and you're just focusing on selling, it's a suboptimal conversation for everyone. And I think that's where it kind of really matters that there's this, you have to kind of look at the distributor as a part of a business, not as just a partner, which means their economics should be as critical to you as your own economics for the brand are. And how they can kind of scale up is as important to you as that's when it all works together.
Anyone else? See one back there?
Hi, you guys all have very scientifically technical brands. I'm wondering if you guys can speak to tactics that you employ to systematize the communication of that technology, both to the people who are distributing your products and also how they communicate the science behind your brand and do general product education to their customer base.
Maybe Carrie, you start.
Sure. So, it's interesting. When you are looking at a spa partner, there are layers of education. So we go in and we give the estheticians a very serious deep dive into science, and we build decks, and we have, videos, and we have very detailed information. But then you have the front desk. And basically, you have to give them a completely different level of education because they're actually just selling your brand and a treatment. Whereas the esthetician has to have, the hands-on technique that I mentioned, along with the product knowledge and understanding the benefits, right? And how you're actually achieving, a claim, for example, that you're building collagen. And as a brand, we spend time and a lot of money on clinical studies with third-party labs that are, PhD technicians that are actually deep diving into our claims and proving them with actual instrumental measurements. It's not a consumer perception. So we have these studies and stats on percentages of, how much we've increased the collagen production or how we're actually dissolving pigment that is on the surface as well as deeper into the dermis. So we invest in that kind of proof so that we don't have to, we're not there kind of convincing. We've got the documentation, and it's very helpful. It's a big part of our strategy.
Two great nuggets there, the importance of scientific clinicals and the importance of the front desk, not to be overlooked.
Yes.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
I just want to add, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say our education teams are brilliant at packaging up research and education into what we call discoverable content. So the top line of an education process might be, for example, a rationale, it boosts your skin's immune system. And then discoverable content, well, how does it do that? Through use of B group vitamins. And what do? They prevent photoimmunosuppression. So I think never underestimate the level of interest of the consumer is really important, and make sure that all of the teams, from the doctor to the esthetician to the patients themselves, have this discoverable content mindset.
Got it. Suveen, we are out of time, but if you have something to add, I'd love to.
I just wanted to add, one is obviously the product education because it matters. The question is, again, whether it's a salon professional or a spa professional, you need to continue engaging them. So you kind of did the product education twice. What happens after that? If you're not kind of thinking through that entire experience, because at the end of the day, product education is once, but why? Why does it matter? And how does it impact their life? You got to kind of weave that into the education and constantly kind of build up different touch points, which then makes them excited to want to come back to you and learn more.
All right. Well, thank you so much to
Thank
our
you.
awesome panel. Thank you for
Thank you
sharing all
very
this
much.
great
Thank you.
information.
Thank you. That's great.
So much.